Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Sorry about the small delay. We had some technical issues going on in the background, but I am here tonight. Welcome to the Erudition Network Black History and Knowledge session. My name is Eddie Phillips. If you are this is your first time watching this program, I welcome you. We are on every Thursday night to talk about Black history and to provide some perspective on Black history that is not generally shared or seen. And so every Thursday night, I will be on to discuss this. Now, what I will ask you all, I tried today. I'm almost done with StreamYard. All right. We seem to be constantly having some type of issue with StreamYard where I can't see comments unless you go to the main Erudition Network page. Or if you are a part of the Erudition Network Interactive Black History Sessions group on Facebook, you will be able to also see our programs and you can comment through that group page. We have tried to do workarounds in order to fix this situation. I am also noticing that we seem to, over the last couple of episodes, whether it's mine, my wife's, or the kids on the Wednesday, we're having some sort of ramping issue, and I'm wondering if it has something to do with the weather, but it's been kind of persistent for the last 2 weeks, and so it's getting a little annoying that we're constantly having these ramping issues, which kind of takes away from what we're trying to present to you. So we're gonna have to find somewhere work around somewhere around this to better present to you this program. Like I'm seeing right now, I don't know if you're seeing, let me know if you're with us, 3 people that are with us, if you're seeing it freezing or staticky, please let us know, because I can see it from my vision on StreamYard, but it's persistent, and I don't want to take away from your ability to interact with us or learn with us if these programs consistently seem to be having a problem communicating. So we're going to do something about that. I had a plan tonight to do a Jesus in History program, but I decided that I would push that back because I couldn't get people's schedules. A lot of the ministers and church folks I would have liked to have on, elders and things, to go on to talk about that subject, because I think it's an interesting subject, because you constantly hear historians tell people that Jesus was a real person, and there's no definitive proof, and there's multitudes of things in history as well as the Gospels that support that he in fact was a real person. So I really want us to explore that. So we're going to try to do that, push back on that, and make sure we get into that in the coming week or weeks ahead. But I wanted to make sure that I gave it due diligence, the proper effort to make sure it's not just me talking to you about that portion of history. But I just don't want us to continually blow it off. I've been wanting to do this for a little while, and I hope that we can get to this. Sean Anthony, good to see you. Facebook user, I can't see your name, but I do see that you tag someone. I appreciate that. Or unless that is you, Daniel Bill. Okay, I'll be froze again. Work with us tonight. Work with us tonight on what we're doing. All right, so tonight I'm trying to give a little bit of time because I was a little bit late tonight to see if we could get people in. All right. So tonight, I don't know if you know this, but over the last few days, if you go on to the Erudition Network, you will notice that I put out a quiz. And I want to give you the quick breakdown, the background rather, of why this quiz was put out. People freak out unnecessarily when we put out a Black History quiz. We're not doing it to stump the chump. This has nothing to do with that. We do these quizzes because I feel that sometimes we need to identify the things that we don't know about our history. And so I take a lot of time sometimes going in and creating something that I think that can teach you as well as be interactive with you. So we created a Black Faces Matter Part 1 quiz. And the reason why I did this, ladies and gentlemen, is because I have started to notice that we don't recognize faces in our own history. We have a problem in recognizing faces. And it never fails also, one of the other issues is that every Black History Month, we run into this issue where people are putting out photos. I shared this on the program before, putting out photos of Black people's history. And the photos are calling them pimps and everything else. With Marcus Garvey, calling him Mr. Moneybags or whatever they were calling him. And we keep running into this where people are not giving proper reference or reverence to the folks that we have in Black history. And because this is a problem, this is a major problem, I wanted to do a test, a quiz that addressed it, right? That addressed it, that gave it its diligence, as always, to make sure people understood what they didn't know. We had the whole Montgomery Brawl situation that occurred the other day, and that whole situation, it was quite crazy because people were putting out Nathaniel Alexander, the guy who created a version of, or the earlier version of the folding chair, and they were putting Nathaniel Alexander's information out with Louis Latimer's face on it. And I know some people were like, well, you know, Eddie, that's not, no, it's a serious thing because it showed, right? I saw credible Black history sites doing the exact same thing. They were putting out information and this picture with Louis Latimer's face on it, and completely unaware completely unaware. And a lot of them having things on their website saying this is factual Black history, this is true Black history, this is where you get it from. And they all shared this because, and that kind of disturbed me because it made me realize how much we don't know or recognize people within our own history. It was disturbing because here we are at 2023 and we don't know the difference between a very famous like Lou Latimer who created the filament and helped to create the light bulb, the very thing that we are using the filament to be able to light the world. And someone legitimately on one of those sites had put a an actual picture of this man on another Black man's face. And we see that, right? There was an incident, the famous incident where Samuel Jackson got into a news person's tail because he tried to tell him what I think was, I'm not Denzel Washington, I'm not Lawrence Fishburne, right? Because Blacks aren't given the same reverence or understanding or recognition, right, of who they are. And it should be quite disturbing, and it is. It's disturbing because it shows us what we don't know. But I also wanted to talk about that because there is so much taught to us, right, that we pick up on of other cultures, other people. And so tonight, I think we have about 4 people in here. I'm not going to belabor this any longer. We're having problems, it looks like, with the feed a little bit. And so I don't want to belabor this. I want to do something tonight where we're going to go into this. We're going to I won't say play a game, but I'm gonna get your interaction. I'm gonna make this a very interactive session tonight. Right? So I ask that you share, do whatever you need to do to get people to come in. This is going to be very interactive. But we're going to do a version of the quiz that I put out. And I'm going to share with you also, people, the quiz that we put out the other day. That's the link. That is the link. You can get on there and take that quiz. It's an 8-minute quiz. If you can't get through it in 8 minutes, okay, you can do it the next day and try again. But I guarantee you, whether you make the 8 minutes or not, right? I want you to cheat with Google. I want you to answer it the best way you can. Learn what you can when you get things wrong, and correct the next day and do better. Because learning is repetition. Learning is repetition. And you will be better for that. So if we could do that, that would be good. All right. So let me pull this up. I really want us to get started here. All right. So here we are. And I hope everything, you can feel things a little bit better here, but I want us to do this. All right. So we're going to go through a quick thing here. I'm going to show you some pictures. And then I want you, the people who are on, followers who are on right now, I want you to tell me who you think these people are. Give me your best guess. It doesn't have to be necessarily right, but we're going to give each one of them about a few seconds, and then we're going to show them. You should be able to see. So let's move on to that. All right, here's 2 people. Let's go one at a time. You could tell me who are these two gentlemen that you see on this slide. It's a pretty easy one. I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to get a couple of answers in. I see one has already come in. Keep going. Yeah, all right. I'm gonna give it about another 5 seconds. See, I got a couple. So we got a couple answers up in here. Like I said, this is a pretty easy one right here. People act sometimes as if I'm trying to uh, give you something really, but this is not. This is not really hard. I want you to. Eric said he was displayed in you, in you people, I believe. Okay, I think Teddy said Fred Hampton and MLK Jr. Facebook user, you asked it first. You said Fred Hampton, MLK Jr. Absolutely correct. Now those were easy ones, right? We know who Fred Hampton is, a member of the Black Panther Party in Chicago, very young man uh, who was um, by the Chicago police. Um, Unfortunately, because of his activism, very famous for saying he is a revolutionary. He was a target of the FBI's COINTELPRO program, and it is one of the major reasons why he was killed. Um, him and another man named Mark Clark were shot and killed in his apartment home. Fred Hampton is very important because he brought together a lot of different people, a lot of differing backgrounds in a way that hadn't been done. We all know who the Reverend Luther King Jr. is and his significance in the um, civil rights movement. Oh, okay, John, what's up? Okay, I see you now. I just couldn't tell. Had a shirt saying he was murdered in the Netflix movie. You people, yeah, yes, he was murdered. All right, we're gonna move on to the next slide. Same thing. Answer as best you can. Who are these two people? Give you a couple of moments. Give me your best guess. I know a lot of these things we are not taught in school. I'll give you guys about another 10 more seconds. Any answer will do. You don't know, just type in you don't know. This is not a stump to chump. This is something for us tonight to learn. A couple more seconds, guys. All right. So the first man you see right here, sitting back in it, is I said, I don't know. I'm having trouble remembering. Fine. That's fine. Uh, Eddie, I don't know, but they are stylish. They was always stylish. You always had to be clean. The very first person that you see here is Blanche K. Bruce. Uh, Bruce was very important. He was a Republican. He was one of the first uh, uh, African American politicians and senators, right? Uh, he was the first black senator from the state of Mississippi during the Reconstruction era. He was educated, as well as his wife was educated. Um, he became a very important figure in politics post slavery. He was born in 1841 to a slave mother um, in Prince George's County, and I believe, George's County, Maryland. And his issue, the issue with 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 Blatch is that he did a lot of things to benefit whites and blacks post the Civil War. But but what what wound up happening was that the when Reconstruction failed, he was removed. He was one of the people removed from government, right? But it does not take away from what Blanche K. Bruce was able to do for our people. And so I'm going to drop that name. Drop Blanche K. Bruce. He's the one that is sitting, right? You know to go look him up, right? Again, like I said, this is an interactive learning session. I do not want you to feel this is a stomp the chump. We are learning tonight. Share this with someone so that they also may learn and put a face to the history. That's really what this is about. Put a face to the history, right? He is the first, Blanche K. Bruce, first African American to serve a full term in the Senate in the state of Mississippi. That is very significant and something that should be known, and his face should be recognized. The next person that you see in this picture is Benjamin Pop Singleton. He was an African American civil rights activist. He was born in Nashville in 1809. He was a slave, and he escaped slavery in 1846. And he was a prominent helper and supporter of the Underground Railroad, helping enslaved people escape from north. His name and his face have been forgotten. It has been forgotten. But he was very significant in his life. Pop Singleton created one of the earliest real estate and homestead associations after the Civil War that was aimed at allowing black former enslaved people to purchase land and establish their own cities and towns. He took his knowledge and he paid it back. He organized what was known as the Exodusters, which were ex-enslaved people who migrated from the South to Kansas in search of a better opportunity and better life and better land. He lived until 1900. He stayed in Kansas, and he allowed and established such a pioneering ideal in our culture. But his name has been forgotten. His face has been forgotten. Benjamin Pop Singleton is a very important person for you to look up, right? So you understand how life happened after slavery and how people went forward to do better. I'm going to put his name in here too. So you, again, know who he is. Remembering this history and applying it. So when you see these faces, Blanche K. Bruce, Pop Singleton, who they were. Good job, everybody, for the answers that you did try to give. Who are these two gentlemen? Who are these two gentlemen? I'll give you a moment like I did before. This is not Stump the Chump. Answer the best you can. A couple more seconds. All right. I was trying to answer somebody's email here. Anybody got, even if you don't know, remember I told you, if you don't know, just type it in and we'll get to it. I know the one on the left, but it's not clicking. Okay. Anybody else? All right. I gave you guys some time. I thought my wife or my son would recognize the gentleman on the left. I can't place the name of the one on the left, but I don't know who the one on the right. Okay, that's okay. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. No issue with that. All right. So I'm going to tell you, the first gentleman that you see here is Kenneth Clark. Kenneth B. Clark. You may remember Kenneth Clark because he was the one that conducted the groundbreaking research experiment on self-image of Black children. He was a very famous psychologist, educator, and civil rights activist. He was renowned because of showing and using the Dow study, right, which played a significant role in what happened. Come on, Sean Anthony, that's my son right there. Isn't that Kenneth Clark from the Doll experiment? Yes, absolutely right. Thank you, Poppy. Papo, really good. It is important to know who Kenneth Clark is because if many of us know about the study, we know about the Black Doll, White Doll, the Doll study, but we don't, but that him and his wife, Mamie Phipps Clark did, but we don't put the faces to the history. So when you look at Dr. Clark here, I want you to understand, put that face. I hear a lot of you you're putting in here, hey, I knew him, but I can't really place him. And that's why we're doing this tonight, right? That's why we're doing this tonight. Because we want to give an opportunity for people to learn these gentlemen and these women who you're going to see. But Sean Anthony, you got it right. Good job. Look, please look up Mr. Clark. I'm sure some of you've kind of showed me, you knew kind of who he was. Go and look him up. Put that name to your memory. The next person that you see here, I've known this gentleman's name since I was 7 years old. I participated in a Black History Bowl, and he was one of the first people that I had to study about. The gentleman's name is Ralph Bunche, right? Ralph Bunche is important. He was a political scientist. He was a diplomat, obviously a civil rights icon. He is responsible for negotiating an armistice agreement between Israel and many Arab nations. His work and creating this armistice in the late 40s made him to be the first Black man awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1950. Ralph Bunche is significant. He was a man of peace, and he always tried to negotiate in order to make sure that people of color were not warring against or harming each other. He played a part in decolonizing a lot of the colonial worlds that the English and other countries had pushed. And he is someone that we should remember. He is someone that we should remember. He was the Undersecretary General for the Political Affairs branch of the United Nations, which is a very high post. And even though many people did not want this black man in that position, right? And even though there was criticism, because think about when he was around in the 50s, that he didn't pay enough attention to the civil rights struggles that were going on in his own country. That was not necessarily true. He understood the Pan-Africanism, understanding that if we can't solve this hatred of people of color worldwide, we will never be able to solve in the United States. Ralph Bunche is someone that you should know. Someone, when you see him, his face should resound with you. Without the inspiration of a Ralph Bunche, you would not have had people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or the political backing that we had later in the 60s from working within the system. Put that for you. All right. So let's move on to another one. A couple more slides here. Who are these two gentlemen? One should be very easy. The other may be a struggle. Who are these two gentlemen? I expect somebody will tell me who the first one is. They'll get that one real quick. Anybody? I'll give you guys about 5 more seconds. This one is not really that hard. The first one is James Baldwin, I believe. You are correct, Sean Anthony. Who's the second one? Does anybody know the second one? I'll give you about 5 more seconds and I'm going to move on. Yep, that's James Baldwin. Gotcha. Who's the second person sitting there in the chair? Even if you don't know, just type in, I don't know. That's fine. All right. So, as was said twice on here, oh, I got you, man. I know we're having some connection problems here, but that's good. Yeah, James Baldwin, got you. There's a lot to say about James Baldwin. He was a writer. He was an essayist. He was a civil rights icon. He was a debater. He was probably one of the most pure genius black men of the 20th century. It's all hard to encapsulate Baldwin because he challenged both those within our culture and those outside of culture. If you read his book, The Fire Next Time, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Notes of a Native Son. If you have not ever read that in your life, I would suggest that you go get those books, those essays, and you read them. He had an eloquence and an understanding of the Black experience. And he made sure he challenged those with the academic world and gave them a realistic understanding of what it meant to be a Black man or a Black person in America. He left the United States to go to France because not that he did not love America, but he could not advocate or feel that he was represented in a country that could kill and murder his people. And then he came back to leave a legacy for us to read and understand what our efforts should do in this world, in America and around the world. You need to know James Baldwin's face, and I'm glad a lot of you did, and you need to read his work. The second person that you see here is Walter White, Walter Francis White. Walter Francis White may look like a white guy. It's because his family, they were slaves, and he was slave. And Walter White could have been a man who could have gone through life and allowed and passed, but that's not what he wanted to do. Walter White wanted to help his people. He was a member of the NAACP, and he was an investigator for them. Walter White would go to white towns, and he would go to lynchings or post lynchings, and he would ask questions of the white people in town who assumed that he himself was a white man. And he would get information about them and what they did. He was able to get into places that other Black people could not get into to dissect the idea of why they would kill and murder us. He played such a pivotal role in our steps towards civil rights. He was a trainer and a help for people like Thurgood Marshall, W.B. Du Bois. Right? So when we look at Walter White, we need to understand his campaign against lynching. We need to remember that face. But again, he's another face lost to history, another person we don't really recognize, because he is at the outside of the civil rights movement and at the cusp of it. He passed away in 1955, but his legacy, his influence went on through all of the activism and everything that you saw taking place in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s. We need to remember Walter White, Walter Francis White. And we need to remember his contributions. I want you to go take some time after we do this to go look up Walter White. Good one. Next. Who are these two? One is obviously is an artistic rendition, but it kind of got a cheat in here for you. But give me your thoughts on who these two men are. Give you a couple of seconds. As I try to put this in here for you guys. Give you about 10, 15 more seconds. Anybody? Anybody? Any one of them? Even if you don't know. All right. Shaka Zulu and nope. But I can understand why you would think that was Daniel Williams. Shout out to you on fire today. Yes, the first one is Benjamin Banneker. Who was the second one? Give you 5 seconds. All right. So Sean Anthony kind of told us the first one is Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker was a mathematician, probably beyond anything else. Let's call him that, right? He was a mathematician. He was an astronomer. He was a naturalist. He was a person that created the first functional, first African American to create a functional almanac. He was a genius. He was a genius, right? He was born in Baltimore. He was pretty much self-educated. His family, some had come from, but then they had been given their freedom. He was very much known for his mathematical abilities. When the construction of Washington, D.C., the nation's capital was being proposed, they brought in a actual architect, right, to lay it all out. And the man, when he wasn't paid, decided that he was going to leave. He wasn't going to stay. Before he left, they had asked Banneker to come in and look at the plans. It is reported that Benjamin Banneker may have only looked at these plans twice in a very short amount of time. And when the original architect left, Banneker came back and wrote up the plans from memory and made them better. He is one of the major architects of what you see as Washington, D.C. right now. He was an advocate for civil rights. He was a friend of Thomas Jefferson, and he challenged him in his letters on Jefferson's idea of freedom and thus still having slaves. Benjamin Banneker is someone we should remember. That clock that you see under him was so accurate that within 50 to 60 years after his death, still accurate and functional. He made one of the first mostly functional clocks that lasted for years using his genius. He is someone we should know. The next person that you see on there is Percy Julian. You all in Chicago, there are schools. Percy Julian, there's a school, some schools named Percy Julian. Percy Julian was a chemist. He was a very, very famous and knowledgeable chemist who learned how to use plants for medicinal purposes, right? He conducted groundbreaking research, right, and how to put certain medicinal compounds from plants and things together, right? He was able to understand how testosterones, progesterones, hormones, how they could be affected by medicine and how we could make them then affordable for everyone. Despite the fact that Percy Julian was born in 1899 and came up in a time of pure racism, he lived to 1975. He was given a lot of credit in Chicago. The reason why we have schools for Percy Julian in Chicago is because he received Chicago's Man of the Year in 1950. He was significant. A lot of the research we see now, a lot of things that you see in the drug industry, they are influenced by the groundbreaking work of Percy Julian. He wasn't a rapper, a singer, a movie star. He was a man that wanted to help his people by providing us with his knowledge to take it further into where we are now. He is some thought body that we need to recognize and remember. I would ask that you look up Percy Julian and understand who he is. Put his name in there, you guys. Next. Hey, no issue, man. I do the best you can. This is a knowledge session. Sean Anthony, I'm good at faces, but name is just not a strong suit. So, of course, I'm going to. My child. Who are these two people? As I said, I'll give you a couple of seconds. Anybody? Anybody? A couple more seconds here. And Anthony, I see your answer. You were right with that one. All right. That is John H. Johnson. What is John H. Johnson known for? Teddy, no clue. No, not an issue. John H. Johnson was a businessman. He was a publisher. He was the publisher of Ebony and Jet magazine. Ebony magazine was very important to Black people. And if you go back through your family, I'm sure you have family members who have some Ebony or Jet. It was one of the most successful publications to put out issues that revolved around Black people. He was the most influential Black man of the 20th century because he was able to report on things that were going on in our country. From Ebony in 1945 to publishing Jet magazine in 1951. It was at the height of the civil rights movement, and stories would go out to inform people, the death of Emmett Till being one, and to inform Americans, and predominantly Blacks, on what was going on in the world. John H. Johnson lived until 2005, so he is someone within our relative history right now, but he was a contributing factor in making sure we were informed in Black media. The second person here is Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson was a world-recognized singer. He was a famous athlete before that, actor, civil rights activist. He himself would not take a second fiddle to anyone white. He excelled academically. He had a very deep and boisterous voice. You may hear his renditions of Old Man River. He played as an actor in The Emperor Jones, a groundbreaking film. He is also remembered because of his ties to the Communist Party. The United States government was afraid of what was going on. Robeson only his idea with communism had to do with the fact that the Russians saw what whites were doing to our people in America. And they could not understand why America could be seen as the land of the free, home of the brave, if they were still having segregation and violence against blacks. Robeson understood that and sided with the Russians. It's one of the major reasons why he became a communist in his political beliefs. But because of that, he was blacklisted during the McCarthy era, and he was not allowed to leave out of the country to make money. They tried to starve him. Before Muhammad Ali's situation with not wanting to go fight in Vietnam War, Paul Robeson was probably one of those recognized faces of black men who just refused to submit to an imperialistic American mentality that you have to follow what we say in a country where we're supposed to have certain freedoms. You need to read about Paul Robeson. You need to read about John H. Johnson and know who they are. Recognize those faces when you see them. The first one, because we're running out of time. We all know that is Malcolm X. I'm sure you know. But I'm going to ask you, do you know who the other person is sitting back? Does that face even stand out to you? If it does, type the name. If it doesn't, just let me know. It doesn't. So we can cut down on the time. All right. The second person that you see on there, I see people saying the man with the glasses, Malcolm X. Absolutely right. Correct, Tina. Yes, you are correct. Shanetti says I don't know. The second person that you see sitting here is William Steele. William Steele is another name lost in history for a lot of us. He's an African-American abolitionist. He was one of the conductors of the Underground Railroad. He was also the guy who wrote down all of the information when people came in from the Underground Railroad to know where they came from, to try to figure out who they were and to take their stories down. Up to an estimated probably about 700 people get to freedom and make their way to Canada. And he documented everything that they went through. He was very well known for his vigilance and trying to get his people out of the South. He was a writer. He was a historian. He was a genius. And we talk a lot about Harriet Tubman, but we often forget about William Steele. The documentation that William Steele put down is still used today as a historical account of what our ancestors went through. Because Steele understood that it wasn't just to get to freedom, it was the story that got you here. We all had stories and families. A lot of those stories were used later on to trace people's ancestry, to let them know who they were related to. He is someone we should remember when we see his face. Next, let's move on. These two people. Yeah or nay? Just tell me if you know who they are. If you don't, that's fine. We'll move it on. Anybody? 2 more seconds. All right. The first person that you see here is Paul Laurence Dunbar. If you don't know who, so moving on. The first person is Paul Laurence Dunbar, right? Paul Laurence Dunbar was a poet, novelist, a writer. very well known, an educator. Uh, Dunbar was one of the first poets to talk about what our struggles as Black people. Uh, he had a significant role in what became the Renaissance in writing. He wrote over about 500 poems. He had many books and novels. His poetry is still quoted and all over the world. He is celebrated for what he told about our culture and our people. Schools and things have been named after him. He is someone that you should recognize. The second that you hear is Vernon Damer. Vernon Damer was a African-American man who owned a store, who was also a civil rights leader and a community leader. He wanted in the 60s, he was one of the people who was pushing for Blacks to register to vote. He was a man who did not have to do that. His little store made a lot of money. He was a farmer and businessman, and he did very well. But because he was an outspoken civil rights activist in Mississippi, Hattiesburg particularly, the Ku Klux Klan focused on him. And what they did was they started a fire in his home one night and started to shoot into his home. Damer got his children and his wife out of the home as he shot back at the Klan. And he himself was burned, I believe, over 90% of his body. He kept shooting and burning until his family was able to escape into the woods. He died painfully, only because he wanted to make sure that Black people had the right to vote. Vernon Damer is somebody you should remember. All right. I'm going to close out by saying this. These are three different people. I guarantee you, the people who are watching this, you will know two of them immediately. You can look at Julius Caesar and know who he is, and you can look at Napoleon and know who he is, but very few of us know who Hannibal Barca is. That man that's sitting in that far left over there. And his significance to military history, his significance to Black history, as a Carthaginian, as a Phoenician, at his war against the Romans. Go look up Hannibal Barca if you don't know who he is. I put these faces because, again, here's some people that you know. You know George Washington. You know Teddy Roosevelt. Right? You know these people. But you can see them and immediately probably tell me who they are. You know Albert Einstein. Right? You know these people's faces because they put them up here in front of you all the time. You know George Wallace because he stood in front of the school as the governor of Alabama and said segregation. He's made that famous speech, segregation today, tomorrow, forever. We know his faces. You know the Edisons and the Fords. But do you know who you are? You know the Thomas Jeffersons. So the takeaway tonight, I know we had a lot of things going on tonight with the feed. But the takeaway I want you to get tonight is how much you don't know. How much you kind of know. I want you to go take that quiz that we put up earlier. I want you to take that quiz. I want you to go and look at those pictures. And I want you to learn these faces. Faces matter. Encourage your friends, your people on your Facebook and social media to take the quiz. It's a quick 8-minute quiz. Or you can take your time and just learn. Come back tomorrow and get 100. Get it pass all of it. But the fact is, we got to learn. We got to know our history. I appreciate all of you tonight who sat with us. This was a spur of the moment thing because as I said, I had a different show planned, but I am happy that we were able to get through most of these faces tonight and create this kind of dialogue. I think it's just so important. I guess that's why we need to say Black Lives Matter, because we don't know the historical faces of Black lives that possibly influence our world. Great sharing today. Thank you. I'm going to get ready to get out of here. I'm at my hour, but I just want to tell you all, I just hope that we can do this every now and again, and we can get people to do this. Encourage people who are not with the live session tonight to get on and go through it and watch this, because I'm sure some of these faces they didn't know either. I just grabbed what I could at the last moment on faces that I think are significant that we don't often talk about. So I'm willing for you to drop me a face, right? Go on our chat, drop a face of a person from Black history, and I promise you I'll respond to you and give some history to it, right? And give you places to go. At the end of this project, I'm going to drop some things in here on books and places that you can go read about some of the men that we showed tonight. I thought I put some women in here too, but as I said, I was doing this very quickly. And we can start talking about some of our ancestors. All right. I'm getting ready to get on out of here. I hope you got something from this session tonight. I really do. I hope you got something. I appreciate John, you being here, Sean Anthony, Teddy. I appreciate all of you all who were here on the live. I encourage you to continue to share and join us every Thursday. All right, I'm ready to get here. You all have a blessed rest of your week. Thank you.